All right, should be live. Let's see what we got going on. Oh, I should probably mute my phone too. That might be a good thing, huh? All right, so stream is up. That's good. Awesome. All right, so. Ooh, what a day. Weather has been crazy here, tell you what. I checked the weather and it was supposed to be like, oh, it's supposed to be hot and sunny. 5% chance of precipitation. I look outside, it's storming. Nuts. So now everything is super hot and humid, and I'm enjoying life. But working on my game some more. So let's see, what am I doing here? Oh, I gotta switch that from chat to live chat. There we go. So I also need to plug my headphones in. There we go. There we go. Now I can hear stuff. Awesome. So let's see where we left off. So I worked on the game a little bit over the weekend, just here and there. Was mostly just having fun with my sons, but in the off moments, I spent like a half hour or two chipping away at stuff, just kind of refamiliarizing myself with the project. So probably like a year and a half ago now, I started working on this shipyard and the browsing the ships for sale. I got this like fixed and working, so it's everything kind of fits. We all have the same formatted currency and all that stuff, so everything is working fine here. But then when you go to view the ships, I haven't figured out how I want to display the weapons that are on there yet. So I'm thinking maybe I might just have a button that says compare weapons, and then it will bring up a little modal or a pop-up that kind of shows you the differences between your weapons that you currently have on your existing ship and the weapons that the weapons that come with the new ship that you're thinking about buying. Also, so ship class, the class wasn't displaying right, first of all, and then also it wasn't capitalized, which looked weird. So that was an easy fix. There's a built-in method for that. The shuttle, for some reason, was showing as a carrier before. I don't know why. I didn't change the ship class of the shuttle, and I haven't been able to reproduce it again. So, not sure why. But if we drag me out of the way over here, you can see down at the bottom right, we have the current funds that you have. So I just gave my guy like 500 million, or no, 500, yeah, 500 million, basically, just for funsies. And so I also changed this to be green and red, depending on like if you're going to receive money, because if you're trading in for something a lot lower, then you're going to get money back. Or if you're trading in something that's not worth enough and you still have to pay money, then it will say in red. So this says you will receive in green, and it shows you're going to receive 16.5 million credits. And then if we look at something that's a bit more expensive, like... why is this one a billion? This seems a bit much. Whatever. So you can see here, you will pay 982.5 million. So these prices are pretty crazy. I just slapped them together. I think I might scale all this down because the numbers are starting to get so big that they don't even have meaning. And if you were just thinking about just doing like a merchant run to where you're just trading trade goods, so it would take forever. I mean, so for example, let's do one of the trade runs that we have in the game currently. I don't think this is even making a sound anymore. That's right. It only makes a sound when you click. It used to make a sound when you scrolled through it, but I changed that. So I'm going to move myself out of the way again. Boom. And so, like, say, for example, let's get, since I have all this money, right? Let me just get, let's see, how much cargo space does this have? 750? That's pretty good. This only has 300. Why is this ship so damn expensive? I think I added too many zeros. Yeah, this is pretty crazy. So if I get like a small freighter, right, which is one of the earliest ships you'll be able to afford in theory, this has 120 tons of cargo hold capacity. So if I purchase this ship, final price of 232.5 million, holy crap. Like even just getting that ship would take a lot, right? So I'm gonna have to scale everything down because that seems crazy. But now I have this ship. This is a coalition ship, so it's the coalition of free worlds. So it's basically humans who don't want to live under the yoke of AI or the harmonious synthocracy, is what the plan is there. So it'll take me a while. Eventually I can warp out of here. Oh, I'm an idiot. God, this thing moves so slow. I need to get cargo to actually go and trade. So let me head back. Almost there. So this ship moves at a pretty much a snail's pace, which is fun. All right, let's slow it down, and land. Okay. So let's go trade some goods. So what sells so low? I know since I programmed this is like the first trade route I ever programmed just as a proof of concept. We can buy medical supplies here for low for 3.33k per, like, I think it's 10 tons. No, that's per unit. So if I just hit control click and then just buy all that I can, so you can see I have 0 available tons. If you get me out of the way here, you can see over here that the net change is negative 399,000 credits. That's how much it's going to cost me to do this trade run. Let me drag me back over here. Then I'm going to move this like over here. That way you guys can see everything. There we go. Perfect time. I needed a video to fall asleep to. Yeah. Hey man, I don't mind being second monitor content or even phone phone closed and just audio content. I don't mind that at all. It's good to see you, man. How are you doing? So did you get rid of your second channel for your space game? Because I can't find it anymore. I was subscribed to it, but now it's gone. Anyway, so let's see here. So I have 120 medical supplies. I'm going to finalize this deal. So now let's just go out into space. And eventually we can make our way over to this star system, which we haven't yet explored in this save. I don't think I have map data in the save file yet, so maybe that's something else to consider. So now we're going to warp there. Boom, there we go. Cool. So the planet that we want to go to is this one right here, Celestia. So if I if I just slow it down, this thing handles like a bus, which is fine. If I go to trade goods, so here you can see medical supplies sells for high. So I spent 399.5 thousand credits or whatever. So if I sell all, I make 462,000 credits, which is basically like what, 63,000 profit, which sounds like a lot, but in reality, in the scale of how everything is priced right now in this game, it's not much. But we can finalize that. And if we go back, and you could do this all in one go. This Xenon is very low, sells for 6.4k a pop. If we buy that, it's going to cost us 768,000. We'll finalize that. Then we're going to head out to Earth to sell it back. It's still there, just changed the name. The Imperialist started a Civ-like game, but now I'm fully into a trading card game. CARG design. I just can't keep my focus on one project at a time. I feel that. I got so many different projects that I've started and I haven't finished. I find that game jams have been really helpful to just give me something else that I can get excited about. And something that I have a timeline and a deadline to complete. And I've been having fun with game jams recently. So, yeah. But I do have a lot of projects that I've started. Come on, there you go. If I hit the right button, that helps. But I do have a lot of projects I've started, and they're kind of halfway. I started a game like Vampire Survivors. Oh, I gotta show you something. So I was going through some of my old files, like on Google Drive and Dropbox and stuff, and I found some of the games I made like 10 years ago. And I found one of them. Let me see. Let me go to my downloads here. So it is called Fail Arena. Let's fire this bad boy up. Yeah. So check this out. So this is a game I made. This is one of the early games I made with like Game Maker Studio. And so you get to pick 3 characters. I'm just going to start with the knight, because he's probably the most interesting. So you start, you're on a horse. It's a top-down view, right? And you can just ride around. You can swipe at enemies, but you can also hold right-click to block. And eventually it powers up your javelin, and you can basically release it and deal big damage. Boom. Look at that. I'm throwing javelins at people. So, like, it just keeps, like, fighting. And I realized that, like, I think this was made probably, like, 12 years ago now. Actually, no, not that long ago. This one was made probably 9 or 10 years ago. This was, like, probably 2014, 2015 I made this. And I realized that this kind of game is similar to the style of, like, Vampire Survivors in a way, but not as detailed, obviously. It doesn't auto-attack. You have to spam your abilities and stuff, which is kind of a drag. And I didn't really put much thought into it. I just kind of made it. Oh, the stupid wizard. How did I not kill that wizard? Suck on that. There you go. And I got another one for you right there. Get on that. Yeah, I got him. So, oh my god, I'm just getting rocked over here. So basically, this game, you play around like this level, right? You can't move around the level, so it's just a static thing. But it's really interesting. If you go in the lava, you lose. So, lava, right? Oh, that's so cool. If you had released it back then, it would kick Vampire Survivors' butt. No, Vampire Survivors is awesome. This was a kind of cool idea that I had, and I finished it so I did like a small, like a proof of concept thing, and I was gonna add more to it, but then I actually lost the files to this because I didn't know about version control yet, and it was just all on my computer, and that computer burnt up. So that was cool. So now we're gonna try out the wizard, and I could just throw random spells at people, and my right click is basically like an oh shit button that like spams ice shards everywhere. And with the wizard, every time a spell hits somebody, these little green orbs are floating back to me that heal me. So it sounds awesome, but I don't think the wizard scales well because I have a really hard time keeping all these enemies down. Get out of my face. I'll kill you all. There you go. Spam, panic spam. See, I keep taking damage like crazy, and these guys take so much damage, and I feel like my damage is not scaling. Doesn't help that they keep blocking. And eventually, so basically you have up at the top kills to next 25, and so I got 12 kills. So basically you level up by killing stuff, which is not a novel concept, right? And then once you get to level 5, the boss spawns, and the boss is a dragon that keeps spawning eggs that spawns baby dragons, and it quickly becomes like so unmanageable that it's insane. So there's probably about maybe 10 minutes of gameplay here, but I thought it was just cool that I found one of the old games that I had, and it still runs, which is cool. The dwarf has like a longer melee ability. He has like a two-handed axe, and then he can charge at people. That's his thing. But half the time when I play this guy, I end up charging into the lava. So, yeah, I had a boss fight. So, that's the game. And then this other game I have here, this one, Actually, I don't need to do that. I already installed it. This was one of the first... this was a kind of a redo of one of the very first game that I ever made. So the very first game that I ever made was basically you had a tower over here and you were a wizard on top of it, and you had enemies that came down from the left and you could just throw spells at them and stuff like that. Well, I eventually found some of the old sprites and stuff that I used for that game. So you can see here I got an archer, I have a wizard, I have a little swordsman here, and I can throw fireballs around, and then I can also throw healing crosses. So the idea for this game was, oh, just go and like take this village, and it quickly becomes like a huge debacle. So it's pretty derpy. You just got guys running towards a door here. I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna fireball these fools. Yeah. So now I have to be careful not to kill these guys, because my attacks can also hit them too. So I'm gonna bust down this door. There we go. We're in. There's an archer there. There's another guy. Boom. Okay, I'm gonna heal this guy. Heal. 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 I'm gonna take out this archer. Heal. Take out this archer. No, heal. Heal. Heal them. So it's kind of a derpy little game, right? Obviously, this is not... I've quickly realized that this format was not very, very fun. But yeah, it was kind of cool. It's kind of cool going back and seeing the games that I made over a decade ago now. And like, realistically, I probably haven't come very far. Like, you would think, oh my god, this guy's a developer with like 10 years experience. He should be making so much better games. But I was self-taught for a lot of it. I started in 2009 while I was deployed to Iraq. And it took me 3 weeks to figure out how to make my character move. And that was a huge victory for me. I was not quick to grasp programming at all. And a lot of the things I learned while being self-taught were wrong. And I still feel myself kind of reverting back to old familiar ways, which are not the right ways. If you ever need another idea for a new project, make a platformer, but only boss fight, like Mortal Kombat tournament type style. Everyone plays games to get to fight bosses. It's true. But this idea has only boss fight. How can it fail? It's true. Looks cool though. It has potential. I don't know about potential, but it was kind of cool back then. I thought it was just kind of cool to play around with the old sprites. The very first sprites I tried making in an old Game Maker 8 is what I made that in, which is pretty cool. So anyway, let's go back to my actual game here that I'm working on now. So if we go to trade goods, we already bought. Oh, here we go. So we're going to sell this Xenon, right? I forgot what we were. So we're going to get 1.44 million credits. I think we were at like 700 something thousand. So you can make a little bit of a profit here and there, right? And there's a trade route, right? I'm going to swap this ship out though, because this thing is a tank. The good news is it does have a turret, so it can have some defensive capabilities. And then once I get this ship customization stuff done, then you'll be able to like add whatever weapons you want to it, which can be awesome. So let's go back to shipyard, browse ships. I'm gonna stick with this Synthocracy luxury shuttle because it's the fastest ship in the game. Max speed 1100 plus 810. So I'm gonna purchase that bad boy for 90 mil, which is pretty insane. So there we go. So what am I going to be working on right now? Well, let's go back and land again here. So if we go to the shipyard, you can go to customize your ship. So I fixed this screen to make it not crash. That's about what I did this weekend, because again, I was factoring out weapon slots. Weapon slots are no longer a concept. I swapped that out to just use mass, like Escape Velocity Nova does. So I have to determine not only how I want to display the weapons, but this is to customize it. I want to be able to add new weapons and add them onto my ship. I also want to be able to add upgrades, so I need to add those to my ship. So I started doing that with the Modder Creator tool that I've shelved right now. So I could probably use some of the same logic, but yeah, so far it's a pretty basic screen. And I want to be able to customize the ship. And then once it's customized, obviously save the ship. That way you have all your stuff and all that. So there's a few things that we got to tackle there with that. But that's what we're trying to do. You are the turtle in the rabbit versus turtle story. You win by being consistent. Keep at it. There is nothing else to do in life. Well, there's lots else to do in life, but worrying about progress, I guess, isn't one of the things I should be worrying about, right? But I do feel bad because I started this series a long time ago, and there is not years worth of work here. There's just not. If I go to let's go to my playlists here. And I make my own game. 65 videos. Let's take a look at this playlist. I don't want to view the playlist. How do I do that? No. Where do I go to view the damn thing? Videos. Here we go. So the first one, part 1, was September 26, 2022. That's almost 3 years ago. That's crazy. But this series is meant to just show the development of a game start to finish. It's not always, especially if it's a hobby thing, it's not always start to finish. It's got a few bumps along the way. And through this journey that I've cataloged here, it's kind of cool to just go back and even read through some of the titles of the game. I started out using Game Maker Studio 2 for this series, and then you were like, X-Wizard, you got to try Godot. So I was like, okay. I played with Godot a little bit before, but I haven't tried it for real. So then I tried Godot, and then here I am. So episode 30 was when I ported it to a new engine. That's a pretty big thing. And then from then on, it's constantly evolving in small parts. And also how I do the devlogs has changed. Initially, I started doing everything in a video. I would just record myself kind of like I'm streaming right now. And I would record it and then cut it down, and then that would be my devlog. And then I realized, oh, people aren't going to want to watch me just stammer my way through some code. So then I started adding hey, this is what I did at the start of it. So that way you can only have to watch the first 4 minutes to see the process or the progress of the game. And then I started working more and more in depth on stuff, and it wasn't feasible to do everything on camera. So then I would just basically have a summary, and then I would go through and do a code review of it. And that's what my devlogs are now, is there's usually a hey, this is what I've been working on. This is what it looks like. This is how far I've come. And then there's the code review portion of it, which is how I did all that. And that seems to work pretty well, because some people who are interested in that only like to watch the first 4 or 5 minutes of it, and that's fine. But yeah, pretty cool. It is so hot in here right now. Holy cow. All right. So now that we know what we got to do, so figuring out ship customization window, that's where I left off. So let's take a look at, see, this is another thing I was talking about, to where, since I'm a self-taught game developer, I still do things my self-taught way, which is not right. And then on the professional side, where I'm an actual programmer and I make business applications, I approach those very different ways. And I need to approach them the same way, I think. So, for example, on the business side, when I have to make something, I typically just look at the requirements and what the data is first. What data do I have to store? What are my CRUD methods going to be for the database? Who needs to have access to this data? What's the security of it? And it always starts with the data. And I work my way up from there, because once you know what the data is, in my experience so far, it's I already know what I have to do with it. You can query it, it's just the basic CRUD methods, and making sure that you can do that. And you would only view the ones that, oh, I got to mute Discord, hang on. I knew I forgot something before I streamed. There we go. Let me let him know I'm streaming. Oh, I think my headphones just turned off. Yeah, they did. You know what? Let me get some stream tunes going too while I'm at it. Music, instrumentals. Let's just play all these. There we go. Cool. So that should be going. And let me message this guy back. All right, so we're good there. Let me get my headphones charged. There we go. Come on. Because if I try to just play it through my speaker here, it comes through on the microphone, even with all my filters and stuff set up. So we don't want that. There we go. All right. So let's turn this down. There we go. Background music. Cool. I was a little too excited by Godot at that time. Now I really don't care what people use. I'm glad you've calmed down because I haven't. I think Godot is awesome. It's like Legos with code. That's how I think of it. It's awesome. You just snap stuff together. It's like looking at my ships, right? They're just like, let's take a look at one of these ships. I just snapped a bunch of Legos together. Oh, I have a Node 2D for the root. I have in there Node 2D that I made a class for the thrusters. A sprite, Area 2D to handle collision detection. Weapons, shields, occluders, upgrades. Like, it's just, I'm putting Legos together, man. It's how it feels. I love it. All right, so we got that. Good to go there. So yeah, I was saying about like how I do approach game dev and how I approach like business programming are two different things, because I start with the data on the business side. And I already know what I have to do. I already know what data I have to work with. I know what needs to be done with that data, who needs to have access to that data so I can secure it, and then I just build the application from there, and it all falls together. Whereas with game development, it's like, oh, I want to make a thing. I'm going to go make that thing. And I didn't really consider like what data that thing needs. I don't start with the data on the game development side. And that's part of the reason why my project is such a mess right now, is because I didn't start with the data. I didn't think about it critically or logically. I think it's just because it's not fun. And I enjoy doing game dev, but sometimes I don't always enjoy business programming. It's kind of soulless at times. So I think what's the word? Subconsciously, I'm like trying to keep those separate. So I don't want the business to infect the fun of the game programming. But at the same time, sometimes it's not fun fixing all my broken ass code that I was like, what the hell was I thinking when I wrote this? Anyway, let's go ahead and let's take a look at what we have. So for our ship, let's take a look at my ship class. So let's take a look at what data we have to save. That's going to be part of it. There's a save method here. So we have weapons save data. And then we're going to have save data. This is what we're storing on the ship level. File name, parent, the position X and Y, because Vector 2 is in a format supported by JSON, so I break those two values out separately. The rotation of the ship, the global position, the velocity that it's traveling at, what the current hit points and stuff are. Inventory data is something that's kind of, I haven't even fleshed out yet. And then I'm probably going to have to, so this is no longer weapon slots, weapons. So weapons save data. And we're also going to have to do upgrades. Put a big old fatty to do there. Figure out what data I need to store for my upgrades. So yeah. I love the instrumental. Remind me a bit about Ronald. You should check out Ronald Jenke's guitar sound. One time. It's played on synth, but it sounds great. I'm gonna write that down. Jenke's. There you go. I'm not gonna look it up now because every time I look up music on stream, my YouTube like bombards me with notifications like, you are not being monetized, your video is blocked in 85 countries. It's like, oh, okay, my bad. I need to make more music. This is just stuff that I made that I kind of robbed the instrumentals from, and it's kind of fun to have in the background while I'm working on stuff. We don't really have upgrade data yet. We do have weapons save data. So what does that look like? So this is, we're getting this from our weapons. Let's take a look at ship weapons and get weapons save data. So this is just a dictionary that we have here that just has the position, the relative position of where it's at on the ship, and then the weapon name, which I labeled this description, which is not even true. Then I have an auto load of all my weapons that just has like the title of it, which is really what it is, and then the description, which is to do, the path of the actual scene, ammo color, which I'm not using yet. I have to fix that one still. And then the attack range, the base price of it, and then what tags it has. So it feels odd having things broken out between like a JSON-like dictionary structure and then having stuff in my prefab scenes. And I kind of have, I'm getting bits and pieces from one or the other, and it feels bad. But I don't know what I should do. If I should just have everything be JSON and then just populate the scenes as they come in. That could be messy and potentially have a computing cost while the game's running. Or if I just go with everything with prefab scenes, then you have a cost of storage and resources, potentially a computing cost, but not as big as like just setting everything up from a JSON on the fly all the time. So I'm kind of in the middle, and I'm not sure what approach is best. I'm not even sure if what I'm doing here is really makes sense. All I know is it's working currently. I just don't know for how long it's going to work. I totally understand. Just meant one time when you have time. Yeah, I will check it out later, man. That's good. So let's see. So we're storing that data. So basically anytime, like for example on the, I think even on the modder editor, the feature that I abandoned, or not abandoned, shelved for now. Editor, modder, ship creator. Let's take a look at this. So this, I have a weapons tab. Let's take a look at that weapons tab. So what am I doing for weapons on here? So let's see. So let's look through my weapons here, or my. So it should be in my ready, I think. Set up our weapon buttons for the weapon tab. We're setting up a button. We're creating a placer. We're getting our weapons auto load, accessing its list dictionary. We're specifying what weapon we want to use, which corresponds to the key here. Tells you what weapon we're going to use there. And then we're getting the path of that. So we're basically telling this placer, hey, what scene are we going to use? This is the type it's going to be, whether it's a weapon or an upgrade. And then we're just passing in the name of it as well. And then the placer let's see. No, I think I have to go back. So we have a create placer, which is saying, hey, do we already have a placer, which is the thing I use to place things on the ship. So I could probably reuse this scene, which is nice. So placer, thing path, thing type, thing name. The ship that we should be interacting with. We're gonna add it to the viewport. So I do have a viewport on my customization screen, so I could use that. The position to start it at, and then the angle. So it should be 0, but... And then we're connecting the signals, whether it's placed or canceled. So that way we can know if something happened. And then for our placer, we're basically setting it to be somewhat transparent. And then the placer itself, if we look at that scene, has these 2 lines so you can tell where it is. And it has a small collision shape, so I can make sure that whatever you're placing is at least colliding with the ship in some way, which is cool. So yeah, how am I determining area entered? So we're just detecting, hey, as soon as we collide with another area, valid, which might not be the way to do it. I might have to specifically target an area. But I might be able to use a lot of this code to make a placer, because I will need to be able to place stuff on the ships. That's part of the goal. Okay. The wheels are turning. Still got a lot of weapons code commented out. Let's go back to shipyard and customize window. Also project structure. I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. Like, I got stuff kind of grouped together, and it's at least in a somewhat, like, ships are, my ship prefabs are under ships. All of my UI stuff is under UI. All of my weapon prefabs or scenes are under weapons. All of my classes are under classes. All of my auto loads are under auto loads. It works well enough, I guess, but as the project expands, I'm probably going to have to add like subfolders for all these things. I'm going to have a ton of ships, a metric shit ton of ships. It's going to be awesome. And then sounds, like I might have to group these by stuff too. And all the sounds I have are mostly .wav format, which I think I might switch it to .ogg or .og, because I think Godot handles those better, and I think they're usually smaller. So I think what I might do is I might, let's see, let's open this in File Manager. So what I might do is I might just spend a day just opening these with Audacity. Come on, Audacity, pop up. And then once I have it in Audacity, then I can literally just export audio, and then I can save it as an OGG. So let's take a look at that. So let's just put this to like my music folder here real quick. Save. So if I export this, it's already exported. I'm gonna close this. Don't save the project. So let's take a look at the size of this. So this is 590 kilobytes. So let's see how the other one is. So we go to music. Sound beam properties. 80.4 kilobytes. So that's pretty massive savings right there. WSG. What does that mean? I don't know what that acronym means. So yeah, I think this is something I might do eventually, is convert all these .wav files to be .ogg Vorbis files, because it's pretty massive savings as far as like size. So that'll make my final build when I get ready much smaller. Oh, what's good? Not much. I'm just kind of trying to think of how I'm going to approach ship customization. And I keep going off on different tangents because I got the creative juices flowing, but yeah, it's going. So I know that I might make a different placer. I don't really want to make specific components for every window. I could make a generic component that is used on all windows, but then I have to genericize it to the point where it's might be unwieldy to use. So I think I'm just going to go with my approach for just get something working and then fix it later. So I think I'm just going to copy a lot of the code from Placer and a lot of the concept for that, and just use it on this window and just use it how I want to use it. And then I also have to figure out how I'm going to display. So this is no longer weapon slot details. So this can be, let's see, weapons. And then ship modifications. I guess modifications is fine. I call them upgrades behind the scenes. That's what I know them as, but maybe modifications is what it's meant to be. So it looks like what I was thinking before when I started this is I was going to have a button that I think was just going to bring up a screen. Currently this doesn't have a signal that's connected to anything currently, so it's not even being used yet, which is fine. Ship details, this is populated by code because in my ready function, I'm basically using BB code in a rich text label to just format stuff so that I could have it in a table as well as colored if I want, which is nice. So that is handled by code. So upgrades, I only have one upgrade currently made. I need to make more. And then for weapons, I gotta figure out how I want to... So this will be populated by code as well. And then this will be I think this should be populated by code. And I should probably have something like see available weapons for sale as well. I think that's a good idea. So if I run the game, and I go into the shipyard, and I go to customize ship. So ship modifications are NA, because there's no upgrades yet. But for weapons, I think I might do something for that as well. So let's exit this. Let's go into the code. So let's see. So we've got a BB code for ship info. Looks like I commented out all the stuff for weapon slots because I phased that out. The GD script does look very similar to Python, yes. And that's kind of one of the things I like about it, is because the main language I use at work is Go, and I love Go, but I do get tired of making brackets around everything. So just being able to have like indentation handle, you know, whether or not something is nested or whatnot, I do like it. And it's a pretty simple language to get a hold of as well. I mean, with programming, like, your first language is always the hardest. But I think that, at least for me anyway, once I figured out like what the common data types were and like how to kind of use them, and then some fundamentals of logic like if statements and for loops and stuff like that. Once I got that, I realized that a lot of the languages are really doing similar stuff, just slightly different ways of doing it. What do you do for a living, if you don't mind sharing? I used to be a full stack developer, but now my current job title is like computer programmer analyst. But I work at such a small shop that I don't just do programming. I do basically everything IT. Systems administration, network administration, like help desk. I program a few things here and there, but mostly it's just supporting a lot of dying legacy apps. And then just handling anything and everything that pops up regarding technology. I'm using all of my skill sets except the ones I want to be using, which is my developer skills. But it's not bad. There's a lot worse jobs out there. Let's see. So player instance. So we're overriding. Okay, so when this customized window loads into the scene for the first time, we are loading the player data from our save. We're instancing the player ship from our save data. We are setting its display mode. We are overwriting the weapons from our save data. But we're not doing anything else with our save data for this. So when I start looking at the upgrades, it's not pulling in the upgrades either. So I'll have to be wary of that. Let's take a look at what... So we are storing ship name, class, shield capacity, hull integrity, acceleration speed, maximum speed, rotation speed, cargo capacity. I'll also need to add a cell here for mass, since that's why I swapped out weapon slots for. So for now, we'll just say mass capacity. And then we're going to add in player data, mass, space. Save. And we'll see if this actually runs. Just a small change. I want to see it just if I have the formatting right. Okay, mass capacity of 10. So it did pull a value. Still better than some software dev at Blizzard. You know what? It's kind of weird. Because I'm aware of the pirate software stuff. But if we look at like the content on my channel for the last few days, my channel sort of went through a drought like the last year because I wasn't really posting anything. And then I go through and I have a live stream. I just figured I would start streaming my game dev because that way it makes me want to work on it more a little bit. And it helps me focus because sometimes I'll just get lost scrolling on YouTube or whatnot. So I did a stream, got 33 viewers. I think maybe there were 5 viewers live. And then like 4 or 5 days ago, I did this fixing my ships and maybe adding new weapons stream. And at the time, it only had, I think, 14 viewers like throughout the whole life of the live stream. And then probably like 2 days ago, YouTube just starts recommending it to people. And then now in my comments, I keep getting people shitting on pirate software in my chat. Oh my god, it's too funny, man. It really is. So, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on pirate software. I think I don't like the way he treats people. I think the way he talks down to people is probably, I think, why everyone hates him and why everyone's dogpiling on him right now. But there are some good videos he made. Like, he did a video about like making video games. And it was super encouraging. And it was like, you know, you don't have to know all these things. Just start doing something, right? And I thought most of the things he covered in that video were actually really good advice. But that doesn't mean that it carries over to everything else. So I've been a programmer professionally since, I don't know, for 6 years now or so. But I don't know. I'm really good at some things, but I certainly don't know everything. And I think it's impossible to know everything, especially if you're a web developer. It feels like there's a new JavaScript framework out like every other week. It's like it's hard to stay on top of this shit. And so that's one of the things I actually ran into at work. Is I got this new job like probably a year and a half ago, a little over a year and a half ago, and they were writing stuff in. They were trying to write stuff in like a .NET Visual Basic with some C#, and I had messed around with that stuff like briefly. I kind of knew what was going on, but the developers that were there were in the same boat that I'm in now, where they don't really get to develop that much. And so they were just going off of what some previous stuff was there from a developer who's no longer there anymore. And one of the guys, great dude, awesome guy, this was his first job right out of college. And so he's like, I feel like I don't have any real development experience. And I was like, well, look at the stuff you've got right now. I mean, you streamline some of these processes and you develop fixes for this stuff. I mean, I would say you're a developer. I mean, you're working fine. But he was really curious as to what I was doing, because I came into this position as an experienced developer where I had been an AWS administrator beforehand, and then I transitioned to development, and I was a full stack developer, doing a lot of stuff on AWS, as well as managed services like Heroku and Netlify. And then I've done things from like microservices to like monolithic large services, and they all have their pros and cons. And I wanted to make, based on what I saw at this job, is one of the things they wanted was like a central hub for everything. And they tried making one of those already, and it was that C#.NET Visual Basic app that they were writing or trying to fix up. And they were like, they didn't really like that language and stuff that much. And I don't like Microsoft because I hate Microsoft shit so bad. That's why I'm running Linux right now. You think I like this because it's free? No, I just did get away from Microsoft. The fact that it's free is a big ass bonus. So yeah, I spend all day troubleshooting Microsoft shit. The last thing I want to do is come home and troubleshoot more Microsoft shit. So I was working in React and Go primarily. I was supporting legacy PHP services. And for databases, I was using anything from PostgreSQL, MySQL to MongoDB, which is a document-driven database, which is like a no SQL thing, which I absolutely hated. Because, yeah, it's a whole nother story. But, so, based on the needs of what they were trying to write, and based on what I knew, I threw together a quick proof of concept of a monolith written in Go and React, like I had done at my old job, that authenticates, it has authentication already done, and then they liked it. It made sense. But the problem is that the big deal breaker was React, because everything had already changed. And I just remembered like the last few months at my previous job, where I was mostly, a lot of the Jira tickets that I was getting in and a lot of the things that were in my sprint was mostly updating deprecated packages that are no longer supported and have vulnerabilities. And so, okay, I can no longer use this thing called Create React App anymore because Facebook abandoned that. They're the people who made React. And now there's something called Next.js. And you should use this if you want to use React. Okay, so I set up a fresh Next.js app, and just a basic boilerplate app. I already had 1,493 dependencies. I was just, fuck this. I'm not going to spend my life maintaining this. So then I had to re-architect this proof of concept to just be, I wanted to keep Go, because Go it's simple, it's easy, it's efficient. It's very opinionated based on syntax, which has the benefit of all the Go code you look up online looks very similar. So, which means that you're going to have a much easier time looking up things. It has great documentation. It's got great community support. And even when version 2 comes out, they're still going to have long-term support for version 1. And version 1 does everything I need it to do. So, yeah, so I re-architected this monolith to have Go, and then I wanted it to be server-side rendering, so I leveraged HTMX, which is a really cool library I found that was only like 10 kilobytes in size, and it's even compatible with like old Internet Explorer mode shit, which I didn't envision that I would have to write anything new that had to be compatible. But our current setup is that we do have a lot of old IE mode pages for internal stuff, which blows my mind. So I was like, okay, I'm going to keep that in the back of my head just in case there's a reason for that. But most likely it's just because of the tech stack they were using before. And so, yeah, so I re-architected it. I used HTMX to basically make it a server-side app, but keep the React-like benefits of not having to re-render the entire page whenever you like click a button or a table updates. It just basically makes AJAX requests back and forth, which is nice. And then it was simple to use, but I had to rewire my thinking from botched up React one-way data flow to server-side rendering. And yeah, and then I used the temple library with Golang to make templating easier, and it was a lot better. And that's the direction we went with. Super cool. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that tangent. But yeah. I got too into Arch because I hated bloated stuff from Windows. I thought about Arch, but everyone's like, you know what? If you want to have control over everything, use Arch. If you want something that just kind of works already, use Mint. And I was like, okay, I don't really want to spend my life fighting with Linux. I use Linux a lot. I use it at work for like our web servers and stuff, but I do like the ability to just come home and work on stuff and be able to work on what I want to work on, not tinker with my operating system, which thankfully with Mint I haven't had to do much so far. I also like the freedom of being able to customize things I use. Yes, that is nice. That is one benefit of Linux. I do love that. I too can't get along with non-SQL database. Isn't that the grossest thing ever? It makes no fucking sense to me. I don't get it. And it's probably just a lack of understanding on my part, but it's probably because the only non-SQL database I've messed with was this MongoDB database that we had in production. And it was rough because I'm used to having like a schema that's defined. So it's like, hey, I know that this field is always going to equal this value. Well, in a non-SQL database, that field might not even be there, or if it is, it might be in a different data type. So for example, if I'm having to write code in Go, which is a statically typed language, which is very opinionated about having types, I have to manually account for every possibility of type that could be there. So for example, like a simple Boolean, right? True or false. In Mongo, on one of the databases I had to support, true or false could be true or false. It could be true or false in quotes, which is a string. It could also be other strings. It could be 1 or 0 in strings. It could be 1 or 0 in integers. It also could be Y or N as strings, or yes or no as strings. One of the databases I messed with had all of those in there. And the code I was writing to basically port all this stuff to migrate it to an SQL database, I had to account for every possibility. And then all the ones that weren't able to run, I had to capture them. And all of the shim code that I had written to handle that, I had to basically expand that more. I basically did it in waves. I did as much as I could. I gathered all the edge cases, wrote the shim code for that, and then I just kept narrowing down all the edge cases until finally it was all done. That was fun. Oh my god. Good stuff. Mongo is great if you have basic data and don't want to deal with relationship between tables. Yeah, there's a lot of good things I've heard about MongoDB, but everything is kind of soured by this interaction I had with this one that was used in production, and there was no validation on the code, so it was literally just vomiting whatever it wanted into this database, which was pretty rough. I did not enjoy that. But maybe I would enjoy it if it was used correctly, but I don't know. There are too many things that I have like surface level knowledge of, like, oh, I read about it once, but I've never actually used. So I don't really, I'm experienced enough to know what I don't know, and what I don't know is pretty much everything. I don't know everything. I don't know anything, really. Especially with all these new technologies coming out every week. It's nuts. Also, setting up Mongo is a pain in the ass. I didn't know that. With MariaDB, all I have to do is get it from Package Manager, run the MariaDB secure installation script. Well, what does that script do? Because I'm a little wary of things that just magically work. I want to know why they work. Because I want to know what they're doing behind the scenes. What problems they're solving for me. So when I come into something similar, it might be something that could be a configuration tweak in the script or whatnot. Yeah, but it's a drop-in replacement for MySQL. More preferred over MySQL in Linux. Really? Cool. Nice. See, I don't know if I should have a database for this game. So far, everything my database in this game is basically my auto loads that store some JSON data. That's about it. And the auto loads are basically global scoped, so that's not a great thing, but I'm not making a multiplayer game. I'm making a single player game. So there's a lot less security constraints I have to be cognizant of, which is fine. So let's see. So we're going to have to do upgrades. So let me add a note here to do. We'll need to figure out upgrades as well. Also, is there any other data from the save file that we need to use? I'll have to look into that later. So then we got that, and this load the control. So we're using this slot UI element. What is that? I can tell you right now it's going to go away, whatever it is. Shipyard. Where is this even? Weapon slot control scene. So what is this thing? It's just a hand-drawn circle. Okay. And what was I thinking when I wrote this? Define some custom signals. So this thing can go away because I'm no longer using weapon slots. So this can pretty much just eat shit and die. So let's remove this. I'm not even going to comment this out. I'm just going to remove this. And to do, figure out modal or pop-up for upgrades, weapons, and a placer component to allow us to place them on the ship. Ideally, this would also handle detecting collisions with other already placed weapons and upgrades. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to be able to like stack all my weapons and upgrades on a single point on the ship, because I think that'd just be overpowered. I think you should have the mass required to install it on your ship, but also the space to install it too. I think that's very important. Let's see. Do you plan on releasing this on Steam? Eventually, yes. It's 8:21. I will have to leave for work soon. Hope you have a great night. You too, Pavel. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. Or is it Pavel? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Apologies if I mispronounced it. But yeah, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it. Have a good shift at work. Get that bread. I'm gonna probably have to go to bed here myself in about 40 minutes or so. But that's fine. So now we need to iterate through all the weapon slots. So we don't need to do any of this anymore. So I'm gonna get rid of all this. So we are building the BB code string for the basic ship for the ship info rich text label. There we go. Formatting the string. Perfect. Determine our ship mods label. So I have a to-do for that. And then we'll also need to determine actually weapons come after the upgrades on this menu. So I'll do this here. We'll also need to handle our ship weapons label, which I will change. You guys are keeping me from losing my mind while I work on what textbooks we need for the next school year. Wow, all right. I'm glad I'm losing my mind here thinking of this stuff. I swear to God. But I'm glad whatever I'm doing's helping out. All right, let's see. So we got a lot of to-dos here. Some feedback and critique I've gotten on my code is that I put way too much comments in here. And I don't disagree with it. But it's one of the things I learned early on, and it's one of the things I keep doing is because a lot of the earlier code, when I was self-taught, learning like Game Maker 8, when I was making my first few games, is that I would come back to those projects months later, and I would have no idea what the hell I was looking at. Ideally, your code shouldn't need comments because it should be self-documenting. That's great in theory, but in practice, I really have a really hard time applying it. So I just put comments that explain what the hell I'm thinking of as I'm writing this code. So when I come back to this code, which has already happened multiple times through this devlog series, I've taken breaks from working on the game, and I've come back and I didn't know where I was, but I've been keeping like a running sort of like a notepad in the top of my main script here that just says, oh, where I left off, and this is what I did since the last devlog, and like these are some things I still have to work out, so I can kind of go, oh, okay. And then, so if I go back to my ship customization window, I can see what I'm doing here. So this ready script, which is called when the node enters the scene tree for the first time, you can see we're getting the player save data. Okay. We're instancing that player ship, which you could see from the code. I guess you don't really need my comments here. But the way I write code and the way I scan code is I tend to look at my comments first to see what I'm thinking of. And then I look to see at my actual code implementation to see if I'm doing what my comments actually say I'm doing, which does have its pros and cons. One of the cons is that sometimes I forget to update my comments when I make changes. So you can see here, now that we've set overwritten weapon slots, let's get them so we can manage them. I just factored out weapon slots, so I don't have weapon slots anymore. But my comment was wrong there, which wouldn't be very helpful. We shall lose our minds together. I love it. All right, so we got to figure out upgrades. We got to figure out a modal pop-up for upgrades and weapons. So I think I might start working on that. But let's start. So we're going to have to handle. So let's do this here as well. I'm just going to reuse that same BB code variable because once I've set the text of this, I don't need to use it anymore, but I can still repurpose it for the other ones. So then I'm going to do. First, I'm going to modify how this is. So slot info. I'm going to rename this. I'll just double click on it and rename it. So this will be weapons info because slots are no longer a thing. I'm going to save that. I'm going to go back in my code and in my references, this is no longer slot info label. This is now weapons info label. And this is no longer this. It is now weapons info. So I'm getting that reference to it. I'm just storing it as a variable up top. That way I can reference it within the scope of this code easier because I don't want to keep typing in the full path or doing git node every time I want to call that. So I typically just declare all my references up at the top of a component. That way I can manage all this stuff on my UI. I kind of think of it as like using imports and stuff in like JavaScript, but it's not quite the same. It's just getting references to stuff that's down the tree, which is, I think, fine. God bless you, good sir. You have changed the RPG club I sponsor forever, particularly with the adoption of Cairn's second edition for next year's campaign. That's awesome. That's cool. That's great. So how are people liking second edition? Because my boys go back and forth. They like second edition, but I think my youngest likes first edition more because he just likes rolling up the quick, wacky characters with just random inventory. Like, for some reason, the idea of just being like a former gardener that just has a sponge and a pulley is awesome to him for some reason. But but he also does like second edition. There are bits and pieces. I mean, overall, second edition I think is a huge positive. I do like how Yohai structured it to where, like, the core rules of Cairn are largely the same. He did change character creation to be more in-depth, which I love. And then all the other stuff, like all the other procedures, he made those like modular. You can pick and choose to use those. And he included a bunch of stuff for like world building and all that stuff, and I think it's awesome. And it's really good. But I find that most of the time I don't use a lot of the procedures. Which is fine. That's why he made it. But yeah, I don't know. I did get my Kickstarter box a while ago. I just never made an unboxing video on it because a bunch of people already did. And every time I've tried to sit down and play with it, my oldest wants to have a actual campaign, like a long-term campaign. So he spends a lot of time making a character that he gets really invested in. And then my youngest is the exact opposite. He doesn't really care about story as much. He basically wants to play a tabletop version of Grand Theft Auto. And he kind of like derails the stuff because we have two different players who want two different things. And so I haven't found a way to reconcile those yet. The closest thing I found was, okay, what if we make a story that I started borrowing stuff from Elder Scrolls, because every Elder Scrolls game starts off where you're a prisoner of some sort, right? So that takes care of the introduction of like, oh, hey, who are we? How do we know each other? Like, what are you doing here? It gets rid of all that stuff. It's just, you are a prisoner. You are both here together. You're being sent somewhere, and the next thing you know, like maybe your ship crashes, or you're in a cave somewhere, or something happens and you're let go, or the Emperor wants to escape through your cell because he keeps having dreams about you, right? So I find that like being a prisoner has been the go-to intro for my boys, because otherwise they just kind of fumble around, and my youngest will just take it in random directions, like, oh, I don't know who this guy is, I'm gonna stab him and take his money. And you realize that's your brother, right? But he's not my brother in the game. I don't know who he is. I mean, that's true. You could try and stab him, like, hey, you see this guy approaching you with a knife, he's gonna stab you, what do? And so they end up just fighting and killing each other. It's like, okay, if you're gonna fight and kill each other anyway, why not have a story about it? Which is why I made this Gladiator game recently. So my most recent video is Gladiators, Glory and Disgrace, playtesting my own TTRPG. So that was kind of one thing I made, and I did a little bit of work on it, but it's pretty fun so far. The boys and I are enjoying it. It's still pretty rough though. I don't even know if it's really a good system. Some of it feels clunky. The reason why I made it is because the boys wanted to roll more dice. That was one of their complaints they had with Karen, is that They only roll dice when they're attacking, and they're only rolling damage dice, and then they occasionally have to make a save if they're doing something that's like super risky, right? And so the boys wanted to roll more dice because they enjoy rolling dice. And so I made a system where you got to roll lots of dice. The students in the club loved the test we did last year. That is part of the reason I pushed for the Switch. I effectively just made them roll D10s and made it up as we went along in the past. That's awesome. That's cool. Yeah, I wish I had gotten into role-playing much sooner. I think my earliest introduction to role-playing games was when I was at Job Corps when I was younger, and I think somebody had like a second edition or a third edition book, and we made characters, and he was just basically plotting it out on graph paper. And I don't remember much about it. All I remember is I made a druid, and I just remember casting insect swarm on people. I don't remember anything about the story. I remember it was cool. I remember the people I played it with. I remember the fun we had, but I don't remember anything about my first role-playing session. And it wasn't... I guess I didn't realize how awesome it could be. And to be fair, the guy who was running it for us had never been a dungeon master before. So it was kind of a new experience for him too, but I think he did a great job. The guy's name was Casper. Super cool dude. I punched him one time though. I feel bad about it. He surprised me. And I punched him in the chest. He's like, "You hit me." Oh man. I'm glad I've calmed down over the years. Holy cow. So let's figure out, so upgrades. Let's take a look at upgrades. I started working on upgrades. So I have a list of the upgrades. So this is the data that we're storing for the upgrades. So we're storing, we have the key. I'm also basically storing the key inside the object because sometimes when I pass this dictionary alone, I only have access to this data. I don't have this. So while it is redundant to add this title in here again with the same value as the key, it just lets me have access to that key inside the object itself. Whether or not that's a good practice or not, probably not, but it's how I'm doing it. The description of what, so I abbreviated the description this time. The upgrade amplifies, so it just gives a description. This is meant to be put on the screen. We also have the scene path to the basically prefab scene. I keep saying prefab, but I think that's a Unity thing, but it makes sense. It's a prefabricated thing, and calling it a prefab makes more sense in my mind than calling it a scene. Because a scene I associate more with like backgrounds and stuff like that, but I don't know. So turn speed. So this is basically whatever. Okay, so this is a more complete look at what we store for upgrades. So basic stuff, title, description, scene path. Then we have all the variables that we could potentially modify. And then we have other effects that we could potentially do. Now, I haven't given any other thought to these other effects. So like radar mechanical, radar biological, sensor mechanical, sensor biological, jammer mechanical, jammer biological. So I was thinking like, okay, well, what happens when I start making my more ships and more factions? And one of the factions I have is, I think I was going to call them like Zerzalians or something like that. They're basically like, they're not Zerg from like StarCraft, but they are biological aliens that their spaceships are living, breathing things. So getting a mechanical like radar jammer on a, I don't know, it just seems weird. So I gave that a cursory thought and nothing more as far as how I'm going to implement that. What I should do is I should sit down and plot out all this data myself, but I kind of don't want to because I'm lame. And then we also have what tags apply to this upgrade. as well as what tags are required for this upgrade to be installed. So for example, this is a synthocracy rotational thruster overtune. So this is a harmonious synthocracy faction specific upgrade. So you can only install it on a ship that has the synthocracy tag. And then it's mechanical. So you can only install it on a mechanical ship. Or maybe I should make that use electrical instead. I'm not sure. So those are the data type of the upgrades so far. So as you can see this upgrade increases our turn speed by 30 degrees. I don't know if it's not 30 degrees. I forgot what let's look at my ship. So let's look at the variables. So if we go to acceleration speed, the rate at which the ship, that's acceleration. Where's turn speed? The rate in degrees at which the ship can rotate in a second. Okay, so it is 30 degrees per second is what that is. So that's fine. So it adds an extra 30 degrees per second, which is a pretty huge boost. And then it only costs 5 mass space. So this would actually decrease your mass by 5. So you have to make sure that if this upgrade is applied, your mass wouldn't be 0. So I'm going to have to handle that calculation as well before it's applied to the ship, before you can even select it. Because if you don't have the space, good user experience, good user design would mean that it would just be grayed out or disabled, or it might not even show up as an option if you don't have the capacity for it. So now that I have a better idea of what data we're going to have to work with, at least initially, right? Everything's subject to change. So now I can start working on the pop-up. And realistically, I should make it a separate scene or a separate component, but I'm not going to do that. Let's see, how do we handle Godot 3.6 pop-up modals? How do we do that? Pop-up. So this is 4.4. That's not going to help me very much. I need 3.6 because that's the engine I'm using for this game. I tried porting it to Godot 4, did not go well. So I'm going to stick with version 3 for this game. But I do use version 4 for a lot of the newer development, like game jams and stuff I do. I tend to use version 4. So I don't think we have a pop-up here. We do, pop-up. So this is a control, inherits from that, canvas item, okay. And it's inherited by pop-up dialog, pop-up menu, pop-up panel, window dialog. Pop-up is a base control used to show dialogues and pop-ups. It's a sub-window and modal by default, it's the control. And it has helpers for custom pop-up behavior. All pop-up methods ensure correct placement within the viewport. That sounds like what I want. So we have a few methods. Pop-up. What does that do? Show the control in modal form. And I guess this rect2 is basically the bounds that it needs to be shown in. And you can choose it pop-up centered or pop-up centered clamped. I see. So I'm probably going to use pop-up centered instead, which just takes in a vector2, which just specifies the size of it. It'll automatically center it and position it. The pop-up, the regular pop-up method takes in a rect2, which is basically like 2 vector2s in one. It's got 4 sets of variables instead of 2. And this is for the top left X and Y and the bottom right X and Y, the actual bounds of where it should be positioned. That makes sense. So I'm not gonna go. I'm gonna use pop-up centered, I think, which should work fine. Okay, so we're gonna do that. So I could probably use the same pop-up. So when I have a pop-up, what do I want to actually show? So if I click this button, see available modifications for sale. Probably going to want to show a list of the available modifications that this location sells. I need to also track that somewhere too, because I have trade goods per location. Maybe I can tack onto that. How am I doing that currently? Auto loads, locations. Okay, so for every location, I have another JSON-like object that has some stuff about what it is, where it's positioned on the star system, what sprite to use, what background to use for that location once you land, which I'm not even using right now, which I should. The menu buttons that are available. So trade goods. So where is the trade goods and stuff listed? I don't see it in my auto loads. Where am I storing it all? Unless it's in my star systems. Star systems. So no, it's not there. Because that's loaded from a file. This is a mess. I tell you what. So where is... Let's just take a look at that UI to see where it's pulling stuff from. So we have shipyard. We have trade window. Let's take a look at that. Classes, trade goods. Why did I make that a class? Okay. So we do have a list of goods, which details every single trade good and its base price, as well as the description and the image path to use for it. And then we have a location, goods, and prices, which is kind of like a... Okay. I see. So we're basically specifying that Earth has all of these. I don't like this approach. Because I'm thinking ahead when I go to add more star systems and locations. I don't want to have to go to 15 different places to handle all the stuff that a location offers. In theory, it should all be under locations. So maybe I can add subsections here that are like, Okay. So either way, to handle my earlier question of where should I store what location will have, like what upgrades available, that'll probably be in this dictionary, which means I'm going to have to modify my template here, which is fine. And then I might I'm going to make notes of this before I forget. So let's go back to my main. So where I left off. So to do refactor trade goods to be listed in locations. To do, we also need to handle, determine what upgrades. I guess we should determine multiple things. What ships, upgrades, and weapons any location with a shipyard will offer. And I'll put a little sub thing here. This should also be part of the locations. So I'm going to put that in there. That's a lot to work on. But this lets me know what I can do. So yeah. It's almost 10 already? Jeez. Okay. Well, I didn't do much programming, but I at least refamiliarized myself with what I've already programmed. I now know better what I have to change. So I think I might tackle these. Just kind of consolidate everything under my locations here. So, like for example, Earth. If it has a shipyard, then I should have probably like some sort of key here that is maybe, let's say shipyard weapons, right? And I should just have an array that corresponds with all the stuff that are listed in my weapons auto load. So it should basically just be an array that has these keys in here, and I can reference those keys. That's what I'll do there. And then going back to my locations, we can have shipyard upgrades. And again, an array, add a comma as well. And we also need shipyard ships, because you can buy new ships as well. So we'll have to specify what every location offers in terms of that. And also, if we are offering trade goods, we have to specify what, so trade goods, and then we'll specify, I don't think we can do an array here, unfortunately. We probably could. We could do an array of dictionaries that specify what the trade goods are, as well as what price modifier to use. Because if we go back to looking at trade goods, we're specifying location, goods, and prices. Oh, I see. So that's exactly what we're doing. We're specifying what trade good is offered and what the modifier is. So here we store what goods are available at each location and what their price modifier is. An absence of a trade good in this list means it is not available at the specified location. So I'm going to put a big old fatty to do here. To do, migrate this into locations.gd auto load. There, we put that there and save that. So this could basically, so I can actually do this right now. I can probably just copy. I have to like adjust all the implementation once all the data is set, but I could make this work. So save that. I think that's where I'm going to stop it for tonight. So before I stop though, let's open up the project and file manager. Let's open it in the terminal. And we're going to make sure that our changes are committed and stored in GitHub, just in case my computer takes a shit and dies tomorrow, I don't lose everything in my game. So git status shows us what changes we have. So I've modified a few things here. If I wanted to know what specifically I modified, I could run a git diff, and that will show me what's different. But for now, I'm happy with what change I made there. So, goddamn, there's bugs. So all this is fine. So git add period specifies everything in this current directory. Since I'm in the root of the directory, I'm going to add all changes for everything. So if we do another git status, you can see now these are all staged. So now I'm going to do a git commit -m to specify a message. And I'm going to say, did some thinking on how to handle upgrades, weapons, and refactoring some old code. Also made some tweaks to shipyard screen, because that's some of the changes I did make earlier. Boom. So then I'm going to do a git push origin and specify what branch. since I'm the only developer working on this game right now, I'm just pushing everything to main, which you wouldn't do in a production environment. I guess it's not true. Some people do that. I was on a team once that did, what was the term called? It's where you don't do branches and code reviews and merges. You do one big ass review at the end of a sprint. I forgot what it was called, but it didn't work well. So, at least for us. But anyway, since I'm just the solo developer on this, I'm going to push it to main, and it's going to push it right to my GitHub. And so now if I go back to my repositories, this was now updated now. So all my code is here on my GitHub. So I can pull this on my laptop if I want to take it to work and work on it during lunch. So, or if my computer crashes, I don't lose everything. So awesome. But yeah, anyway, that's all I've got in me tonight. I think I have a much better idea about what I have to do to make this work. It seems like much less of a scary and amalgamous thing. And especially once I fix this stuff and I put everything in the locations to specify what ships are available, what weapons are available, what upgrades are available, and what trade goods are available for any location. Oh god, I gotta, damn it. I forgot a period. Now it doesn't be broken. Okay, so now I gotta do git status, git add, git status again, just to make sure. Git commit, forgot a comma in a dictionary. I'm not, stupid me. There we go. I'm gonna commit that, git push, origin, main. There you go. I pushed that too. So that everything's there. So I also put stuff in my location or my main so I can work on this later. So when I get home from work tomorrow, depending on how I'm feeling, I can just jump right in. Anyway, that's where I'm going to stop it tonight. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you stopping by, chatting, sharing your thoughts. And yeah, I'm excited to just... I can't believe people are still watching me. Why are people watching me? I'm a boring guy. I don't get it. I mean, I'm not mad about it, but I don't get it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. And I'll see you in whatever video, live stream I do next, whenever I do it. Thank you.